Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
All right, good
Good
to
evening, sir.
see everyone here tonight. And I want to say, this evening, welcome, welcome. Um, Happy Independence to all of us in Nigeria and to those who are from other parts of the world. We wish you happy independence in yours too. Okay, thank you so much for coming to class today. Today is going to be a very interesting class. Very interesting because this is the part of networking that many people are actually scared of. It's easy to read up documentations. Some people even make it through the theoretical part of interviews. But then you are given a device to configure. You are given a router. Can you configure a /30 IP on this device? And then issue starts. There is fear. What do I do? How do I navigate my way around this part of the interview? Because most times, what the interviewers are actually looking for is experience. Do you really understand? Do you know what to do? Can you log into the router? Can you configure an interface? Somebody asked that question in the last class on the platform. And meanwhile, it's actually the next topic in our course. So today we're going to be looking at network configuration. We're going to look at how to set up a basic router, switch, and then the introduction to the command line interface. So I said in today's class, we'll be looking at network configuration. We will understand basic router and switch configuration. And we will have a deep dive into CLI, which is the command line interface, which is where every network engineer or network administrator will be doing most of his or her day-to-day activities. What are we saying here? That we're going to understand more. We're going to be doing more of the technical part, which is what is required of us as a network engineer. And as a result of that, today we're not going to be using a Cisco packet tracer. Cisco packet tracer, it's very good and it's the foundation for networking. However, we are already growing now. There is need for us to begin to have a closer look at what is it exactly that I can use that is closer, if not the same, as the actual Cisco router and actual Cisco switch. When we power up our EVNG today, you're going to see how it looks exactly. If there's any one of us that has had access to a physical router or switch before, you will see that it's same thing. So for instance, if you come for an interview and you said, oh, I configure a switch, I configure MPLS or IPsec VPN on a Cisco iOS 7200 using GNS3 or even G. The person knows that, oh, once you can do that successfully in this kind of environment, because it's more like a physical environment, you will do it in the real life scenario. So the first thing we're going to look at is network configuration. Network configuration refers to setting up a network's hardware, software, and settings to enable devices to communicate efficiently. This process involves assigning IP address, subnet masks, default gateways, and DNS settings to devices. Obviously, we are not going to be looking at this theoretically anymore, because I believe that most of us in this class have gone through all of the previous classes and we know what an IP address is, we know what a subnet mask is, we know what a default gateway is, we know what DNS is. So, but then we just look at the key concepts. So the goal of this class is to ensure all devices can communicate within the local network and access external network, e.g., the internet. When we are done setting up our GNS3 today, you will see even from our LAN, we will be able to ping Google DNS, because we are going to connect the GNS3 to the internet directly. Our router will connect directly to the internet, and you're going to be configuring. When we do this setup, I'm going to explain some things to us that if you have a customer come to you and say, I want to set up my network, and this is the IP that my ISP has given to me, you can set it up for the person and everything will work smoothly. So what are the key concepts? The first thing is IP addressing. Assigning IP addresses to devices such as router, switches, PCs, and so on. So we're going to look at how to do that, which we've done before. Subnet max or subnets, dividing the network into smaller segments. DHCP. So we said in DHCP, automatically assigning IP addresses to devices. We understand all of this before. Routing, setting up paths for data to travel across networks. We will look at that in details. Basic router. Okay, someone asks if, please, sir, will this class be recorded? It's been recorded. Oh, absolutely. Okay, thank you. All right, so basic router and switch configuration. Configuring routers and switches is fundamental skill. It's a fundamental skill in networking that every network engineers engage in on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes you might not even have to configure, you might have to troubleshoot. So if you're going to troubleshoot an issue, you need to have the knowledge of how to configure. You can't troubleshoot what you cannot configure. So this process involves connecting devices, accessing command line interface, and applying basic settings and commands. So basic router configuration. What do we do when we enter a router? What are the basic things to configure in a router? Accessing the CLI via console cable. I taught us that before. How we can use a console cable to access a router, or SSH. We configured SSH in our last class, or Telnet. Assigning an IP address to the router's interface. We're going to do that today. Setting up a default gateway. We'll also do that as well. Configure routing protocol like RIP, OSPF, or EIGRP. All of these are what you begin to look into when you want to go deeper into network engineering. So this is an example. You are going to see how we are going to use this command today. Secure access with password. So sample commands, like what are the sample commands that when you log into a router, the first thing is to use your enable command. Then you say configure terminal. Then you confirm the particular interface that router is connecting to. Whether the router is using its fast Ethernet 0/0 to connect to your ISP or to the local LAN switch. Then when you've configured the IP address, this is the command to configure your IP address, the IP address, the subnet mask. Then no shutdown. No shutdown is saying bring up this interface. Let the interface begin to pass traffic. You're going to see how we'll look at all of those things once we log into our router and we start configuration. Then exit, we can leave that configuration. We're still going to possibly check back on this. So this is how it's going to look. Enable, configure terminal, interface gigabit, depending on the interface name, the IP address, no shutdown, and then basic switch configuration. Access the CLI using a console cable or network connection, depending on how you want to access it. We can assign an IP address to the management interface. By default, we said we have VLAN 1 as the default VLAN for all connecting devices to a switch. So we look at this, we explained this in our previous classes, which is so configure VLANs to segment the network. You can as well set up port security to control access, that is the number of people or how devices can connect to the switch. So we have sample commands, enable, configure terminals, just the same way, but this time around now, interface VLAN 1. Because you want to be able to access the switch via an IP address, you can use this interface VLAN 1 and configure an IP on that VLAN for the switch, so that you can ping the switch from the router or from the local devices that are connected to the switch. Interface fast Ethernet 0/1. Maybe this is the interface that is connecting to your router or to any other PC. Switch port mode access, then switch port mode access VLAN 10. We are creating multiple VLANs in this case here. The command is going to look this way. Right. I'm trying to quickly run through this theoretical part because this training is basically going to be 70 to 80% practical class. So, but when we see these terminologies, we've defined all of these terminologies, it helps us to understand whatever it is that we're going to do in the practical class. So that is why, and we've all done this before, but because we're going to be using EVNG in this class today, we'll begin. That's why I'm just running through this once again. Then introduction to the CLI interface. The CLI is a text-based interface used to configure network devices. It allows network administrator to execute commands directly, providing complete control over the device configuration or troubleshooting network-related issues. So this is what we're saying, that it is this CLI command line interface that gives us the opportunity to talk directly to the device. It gives us the opportunity and the access to talk to the devices directly. So what are the key points when we are using the CLI? Access via console or SSH or telnet. And what are the three major? Please look at this. The common prompt includes the user mode. We're going to look at it when we bring up our EVNG now. The user mode, the privilege mode, and the global configuration mode. These are the three different modes that we have on our Cisco devices. So the CLI offers command for navigation, which includes but not limited to show. We can do show, exit, configure terminal, and configuration, where we can configure the interface, IP address, and then the host name of the device. Now let's dive into configuration using EVNG. We'll be using this software now as we begin to advance our learning. As such, software such as GNS3 and EVNG are closer to real life devices, as it's the device image that are uploaded. So in this EVNG that we're going to be using, it's so interesting that I can tell you categorically that you're going to have a fantastic experience. Let me share my screen. If you are seeing my second screen, please let me know. So whatever you see, just let me know. You should be seeing Workstation Pro under normal circumstances. Okay, so what have I done? I will share a little link with us, how, if you have a very good system, how you can install EVNG. So I have EVNG installed on my Workstation Pro 17. So I've powered it up already. So this is my EVNG running inside my VMware. If I do ifconfig, this is a Linux command. Ifconfig is going to show me all the IP addresses that are on this. I already know the IP address that I have on my EVNG is 192.168.135.128, which is what I can access on the CLI here. So let me close this. I've closed this lab. So, or possibly let me just open it in a new. So HTTP 192.168.135.128. Oh, sorry, I'm using the wrong IP address, not 10, 192, rather 192. Okay. So let me reboot the EVNG. So it's going to show me the IP address. Even from inception, it should show me the IP address. Once it boots up, we will see the IP address. And it's going to tell us what IP address it is and how we can log in. It's going to even tell us the username and the password by default. Okay, somebody want to ask a question?
Yeah, hello, sir.
Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. EVNG is similar to Cisco Packet Tracer, correct?
It's similar, but it's more robust and better.
Okay.
So our IP is 192.168.135.128. So, and it tells us that the default root password is if. So we say root and the password is if. So let's go back again and check the IP 192.168. So we are using SSH here instead of HTTPS instead of HTTP. So now we should be able to log in. So we are in. Let me sign out. So this is the kind of interface you're going to get. So we have admin as username and the password is Eve. So I log in. Let's create a new let's call it basic network configuration. So I've already uploaded the Cisco image for switch, router. I also even went ahead and upload a Windows machine here. I already have maybe we should just have a look at what is EVNG documentation. That will help us to maybe understand some things. So EVNG is a very robust tool. Immediately I started using it, I fell in love with it. Very robust tool. So EVNG is the emulated virtual environment for what? For network, security, and DevOps professional. You see the people that are using it now for network, security, and DevOps professional. In other words, you can simulate almost anything here. The beauty is the fact that you can have almost all devices here. Unlike Cisco Packet Tracer that is only limited to Cisco devices alone. This is not so. This comprises of all devices. You can see the different devices you can install. You will see them here. Supported image. So if I go to supported images, you see it supports all Cisco devices, supports Juniper devices, supports Aruba devices, support Palo Alto devices, support Sophos, VMware. You can install Windows, Linux operating systems. That is the beauty here. And easy to install. We have the enterprise, we have the free version. So, but now I've installed. How do I add a Cisco device? I can just say IOL. So this IOL is going to talk about my switch. So I have a layer 2 switch. I've installed that. I can just have one switch. Let me give it switch. Layer 2 switch. And I change to a switch. L2 switch. So this is a switch. Let's get our router. Cisco. Once I type Cisco, whatever I've installed will show as blue. So we can see it. So let me pick a 7200 router. And let's give it a name. Router is fine. Now I want to connect it directly to the internet. I will use a network. So in this time around now, I can use a management cloud. So I can connect this to, let me connect it to the fast Ethernet 0/. Okay, so we only have one interface here. Let me edit it and add another interface, because we will need to have another interface for better still. Let me see add another one. Let's use the Cisco. Let's use 3725. So we have fast Ethernet 0/0 and fast Ethernet 0/1. So I'm connecting the fast Ethernet 0/0 to the ISP. So this is going to be like our ISP, which is the internet. You're going to see as once we pick up internet from here, we are connected to the ISP. So let's connect our fast Ethernet 0/1 to the switch. So let our switch connect 0/0 should connect to the router. Now, I want to use, here we use what we call VPC. Just window, it's going to be representing our windows. So let's just use 2 here, because I want to also add a Windows machine to it. So we have VPC 1, 3, and 4. We can change the name and let me see if we can edit this. So instead of VPC, let's just use user 1. Let's call this person user 1. And let's call this edit. Let's call this user 2. User 2. Now, I have a Windows. If you see my Windows, I have Windows already installed. This is a complete Windows machine that is going to boot up like our normal Windows as well. So, now let me connect. Let's connect this to Ether 1 on the switch, and user 2 to Ether 2 on the switch as well, and 3.2 to on the switch. Somebody asked a question during the week or last week, which is very interesting: how to configure a router. This is important, and that is where we want to start our work from. So let's forward have a test. What is going to be our LAN? Let's say our LAN network is going to be 192.168.200.0/24. That's the LAN network. Let's boot it. Somebody raised their hand. Please ask your question.
Yes, sir. Look, sir, please, I want to know. LAN network, are they always giving names?
No, they don't. They are not giving names. You can choose any network of your choice or any name for your choice. Yeah.
Okay.
So now our ISP, which is this network here, we don't know what the IP is, but once we enable that interface, and I will show you the command to use to enable it. Now, once we do that, we will know the IP, and we can come here and tabulate that or put that into. So let me power up the router. So I just right click and click start. If it starts successfully, it will turn blue. If you look at it very well now, it has turned blue. The same thing on the switch. I've started that now. It's also fine. Now, let me log into the router. I open it. You see, this booting up, this is the same way your router will boot up. Physical router, this is the same way it boots up in a real life scenario. The same way it's going to boot up in a real life scenario. So I said no, because I don't want it to run the default configuration. Let me see if I can increase or bold that. So can we see my screen, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the router.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Thank you. So this is the router. So we said the first thing is enable. We type our enable. We see the. So before the enable, if you do exit, before the enable, we have, this is the user mode. If you do question mark, this is the user mode. What are the things I can do here? This is the user mode of the router. So you can SSH, you can telnet from here. This is the user mode. But once you type enable, you have moved to the privilege mode. The user mode is indicated by a greater than sign. The privilege mode is indicated by the hash sign or the hash sign. So now, if I do show IP interface brief, we have two interfaces and they are currently administratively down. So the first thing I want to teach us is how to name our interfaces. We know that fast Ethernet 0/0 is connecting to the ISP, the internet. So config T, I will go to that interface fast Ethernet 0/0. I copy it. Description, you use description to name it. So we say connection to ISP or internet. That is our fast Ethernet 0/0. We've named it. Now, how do I want to get IP? Because of the way I set up this infrastructure or this thing, I can get IP via DHCP. So I can just say IP address, and I will say you should use DHCP. You should get his IP address via DHCP. And I said no short. Immediately I bring it up. Now the interface will come up, and you will see it tells us that what interface fast Ethernet 0/0 change state to up. Line protocol interface 0/0 change up. Now it has gotten an IP. If you look at it now, it told us, we see DHCP address assigned. If we do show IP interface brief again now, show IP interface brief, you will see the IP. It has given us an IP of 192.168.135.131. So if I ping internet from here now, it should go. You see, I can reach Google from here. 8.8.8.8. If I ping 4.2.2.2, it should also go. Yes, because that is the work of my ISP. I've gotten access to the internet now from my router. Are we still here? If I do show interface description, you see now, it tells me that fast Ethernet 0/0 is status is up, protocol is up, and what is the description? Connection to my ISP. Why do I need to name this? So that it can be easy for me when I am troubleshooting. Sometimes you will not be able to see your topology this way, the way we are seeing it here. Nobody is going to give you this topology when you come to some offices. So, but you can have access in, and you can, fast Ethernet 0/0 is connected to the ISP. Now, let's go to fast Ethernet 0/1 now. Interface fast Ethernet 0/1. Let's describe it and call it connection to LAN switch. Connection to the LAN switch. So let's say no short as well. No short. And let's give it an IP address of 192.168. We said is 200.1, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. if we do show IP interface brief again, can you see now? Our fast Ethernet 0/1 is also up now. And how is it configured? Manual. We assign the IP manually to the interface. So now, if I do show interface description, we can see that fast Ethernet 0/0 is connecting to the ISP, and fast Ethernet 0/1 is connecting to the switch. Now, somebody asked the question how to configure DHCP and all of the rest. So we are just going to configure DHCP on this router, but let's name this router and call it our LAN router. So host name, let's call it the host name LAN router. So then it's changed. So let's configure DHCP here so that our PCs can get IP via DHCP. I was explaining something about DORA to us the last time. We will see it, how it works here now. So if we are going to configure DHCP, we need to exclude some IP in that LAN IP. So we say IP DHCP exclude 192.168.200.1 from .1 to 192.168.200 to .20. So it should dish out from .21. Fine. Then IP DHCP pool, let's call it LAN pool. What are the things that we want to configure? If we look at it here, you see we have many things here compared to our Cisco packet tracer. So what are the things? We want to configure the network. So what is that? What is the network? 192.168.200.0, then 255.255.255.0. Default gateway or default router 192.168.200.1. That's our. Then DNS server, we can give it 8.8.8.8. But we could also use the IP address of our internet service provider. So, but let's just use 8.8.8 for simplicity. What other things can we configure there? I think that is all we could do for now. And then exit. So when we exit it, we should save our configuration, copy running config, then startup config. We should save it. This is how to save our configuration. So it's being saved. Fantastic. Remember that this switch is in the default state. So I'm trying to log into the switch now. We open our switch as well. The same way it will do in a real life scenario. This is our switch. Enable. Show IP interface brief. So we see that the switch has 0/0 ETA 0/0, which is connecting to the router. We're going to configure the names as well. So let's go ahead and do config T, the interface ETA 0/0 description is connection to LAN router. Now we are not configuring anything there because everything is in. If we do show VLAN here, we have the default VLAN, which is, you see it, VLAN 1. Default VLAN is VLAN 1. And all the interfaces are connected to that VLAN. So we can configure a management IP, config T, and do interface VLAN 1. That's our management VLAN, and give it an IP address of 192.168.200.2, then 255.255.255.0. No short. So that interface is up now. So if I do show IP interface brief, we are going to see an IP on VLAN 1 here. So from here, I will be able to ping the router. Ping 192.168.200.1, which is the IP of the router. You see that now? Successful. So I can repeat this. I can repeat the ping 200 times or 2000 times. You can see. So it's able to reach the router. In other words, if we have a PC on the LAN as well, the PC will be able to also ping this switch, and once it can ping this switch, it can also log into this switch if we configure SSH on this switch. We are going to be doing that in our next class, configuring the SSH. You know, we've configured SSH before on Cisco Packet Tracer, but then we want to begin to do some close to real life scenarios. So now we have our switch configured. Maybe we should give it a host name. Let's call it the same host name, LAN switch, so it can be pretty straightforward. Good. Now let me power up this PC. This Windows is going to take some time before it comes up, unlike the other ones, but once it comes up, we'll be good to go. Now let's look at one of the VPC that we have here, or yeah, VPC. Now, so if I do on this VPC, it is show that we used to see, show IP. Now you see that it's not getting any IP here. It says that IP max is 0.0.0.0, gateway 0.0.0. So there is no any IP here. But then if I do IP DHCP, I'm saying get IP via DHCP. You see it's running DD ORA. This is DORA. Discover, offer. That's the medium through which it gets an IP. Can you see now that it has given it an IP of 192.168.200.21? You remember we said that it shouldn't, in our DHCP configuration, it should exclude from 1 to 20. So we now have it here. Now if I now do show IP again, show IP, you can see that it has given it an IP address of 192.168.200.21/24. That is the range or the block, the subnet mask. Then the gateway is 200.1, and it has a DNS of 8.8.8.8, and the DHCP server is this. So if I ping 4.2.2.2 here, it should respond. Successful. Okay. Let's see if our Windows PC here is up now. You are going to see this exactly our Windows. Are you seeing this now? Another Windows working perfectly here without an issue or any issue. So it's coming up. Why is coming up? Let's go to the next PC, which is the second VPC here. And we do IP, show IP here. It's also 0000, no IP. If I do IP DHCP, so it should get an IP address via DHCP. Here we are. It has gone through the DORA process, which is. Do we have any question?
No, no question on my part.
Okay, so DORA is saying discover, offer, request, and acknowledgement. That is what this DORA means. So when they are asking you, you could come across this question in an interview. What process does DHCP go through in order to get an IP address, or a PC go through? So it goes through the DORA process, which is D for discover, O for offer, R for request, and A for acknowledgement. Acknowledgement, saying I have gotten an IP address. So if I try to ping my call router now, or the LAN router, the Windows seems to have finished booting up. Let's see. I actually wanted to show us how exactly it will be in a real life scenario. Okay, it's still coming up. Let's give it some time. So I want to ping I can ping the LAN router now, which is our Cisco 3700 series. So we know what the IP address of this router is now. Or if I do show IP interface brief, we know the IP address of our, which is this. I've copied it. Let's see. So it's 135.131. And we can do show IP route. This will tell us our gateway. So it's saying that gateway of the last resort is 192.168.135.2. So that is the network that we are using. Okay, so which is good. So I can come back here now and just add a test. This is how you set up a network topology. So WAN network now. Our WAN network. WAN network, which is the network that is connecting to the internet. It's 192.168.135.0/24 as well. So we can make it bold. We can increase the size to, let's say, 15. And fine. So this is our WAN network. So let's see if our window is up. Can you see this now? So the Windows is up now. I'm logging into the Windows. So this is the beauty of EVNG. Can you see this now? Now, on this PC, it said it wants to connect to the internet. So we give it the opportunity to connect. So you will see now, if it's able to, I said it should restart later because of our time. I won't. So we'll see how I can just do my CMD here perfectly well. You can simulate almost anything. You see now, this is the PC. IP config. Let me see the IP he's gotten. You see, he has gotten an IP already. 192.168.200.23. This is the IP here. Maybe let me expand this. And then, so this is the IP. Same way I can now ping Google as well here. 8.8.8.8. Let's try to open internet from here. Now, you remember we said we have access to the internet now. Or maybe we should use Chrome, if that will be faster for us. So if we check here, we will see that there is internet connection. Somebody want to ask a question? So if I do www.google.com, I should have access to the internet. So this is a PC inside of EVNG. You see, this is Google. It's come in now. So what can we do? Let's just say, you see now, Google is celebrating Nigeria on Independence Day. So let's say Apple Independence Day. Apple Independence. To Nigeria. Let's see what Google is going to bring out for us. Already it shows that by flagging, giving us a beautiful flag of Nigeria. So what are the top stories? We can see the top stories. Best wishes. FG declares, October 1st as public holiday. Now, we have configured, what we've done here is successful configuration of setting up internet connection from our LAN to our ISP, and everything is working smoothly. Now, do we have any question?
I don't have a question.
Do we understand what we've done so far? So you see, FG declares October 1st. So now it's taking some time because sometimes it's a virtual environment. Memory could be one of the limitations, but then you can do almost anything here. Let's see if we can access YouTube. That's beautiful. Let's see. YouTube. You see? So we are on YouTube. So with this knowledge, you are able, or you should be able, to set up a network. Set up a network with your service provider giving you the IP address. Now, if for instance your service provider did not enable DHCP and wants you to configure a static IP, you already know how to configure a static IP on the interface connecting to the switch. You just set it up as a manually on the fast Ethernet 0/0. We will do that in our next class, whereby if peradventure we are given a static IP to configure and connect directly, we're going to do that and then do how to create sub interfaces on our routers so that we can connect via multiple VLANs from the LAN. So with this, we will begin to come to the end of today's class. Like I said, I don't want us to be to spend more than an hour in our classes so that it doesn't get us bored when we are going through the class later in the day or tomorrow. So you see channels live. Maybe we could go and check their live streams and let's see what is happening there. So it's taking some time for our YouTube to boot up, but then definitely I can assure you it will. Now let's go to our router. I was talking something about the router here now. So I said show IP interface brief here. The interface that is connecting to our ISP or show interface description is fast Ethernet 0/0 and it's configured via DHCP. But we can configure it manually, which is what we're going to do in the next class. So in our next class, what we are going to do is to configure it in such a way that we are expecting that we are giving okay, so this is channels. We are giving a static IP from our ISP. Our ISP most time will not want you to do a DHCP configuration. Only on rare occasions they will do that. So we'll configure that, we set that up, we'll configure some interfaces on our, so they are asking us to subscribe, but then we can call it a day here. But this is just what I wanted to show us how we can use, and we are going to be working more with this in our next class. Somebody raise up the hand. Oh, please ask your question.
Yeah, yes, sir. So look, I want to ask, in real life situation,
yes,
can router be configured by pinging and also manually in real life situation?
What do you mean by pinging?
No, I mean by using the command prompt to
You can there's no way you want to configure a router without having to access it via console. If you are bringing out a router for the first time, you need to console into it using a console cable.
Okay. So
Yeah.
which means that's manually configuring
Yes,
it
manual
first.
configuration. Yes.
Okay.
So, and you will use something
Okay.
called putty like this.
Okay.
Okay. So, for instance, if I want to log into that router now, I can log into that router now by using 192.168.200.1. And let's see if I SSH. But we did not configure SSH on that router. So there is no way we will be able to put it into it. But we could quickly do that in a jiffy. Let's see if that will go with us. Let's just quickly do something and see how it goes. So if we are going to configure that, config T, we need to. Someone is saying something?
Yes, sir. It's just my own camera. Yes, sir. I can't see the screen, and I've been trying to get it up.
Oh,
So,
okay. Sorry.
sir, please, sir,
Yeah,
please give me a moment. Let me rejoin, sir. I don't want to miss that particular this next session you want to do. I want
okay.
to rejoin, please, sir.
No problem.
That's it now.
Okay, so are you in now? Are you in? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. I am in. I am in.
Okay, you are in now. Fantastic. So in the last class, we discussed of how we can set up our SSH configuration so that we'll be able to, access the router via console. Right? Is anyone there? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So the first thing is we already have an IP configured on the interface of our router. So the next thing is to give it a domain name, IP domain name, and I call it networking solution.ng. So we give it that domain name, and then crypto key generate RSA. So we said it should use 1000. Let's use 2048. So it's generating the crypto key. So the next thing is to enable. We need to create a user who we want to be able to log in. So let's say enable password or secret. Let's use enable secret for security. So enable secret, let's call it Cisco. And then let's create a username, and we can call the user, let's call the user admin, and then the password, let's call it Cisco as well. So now we need to now give it IPSSH version. What version do we want to use? Let's use version 2, which is more secure as well. So then line VTY 0 to 15. That's the number of concurrent PCs. So transport, let's say transport input SSH. Okay? So we now say local login local. Login local. Exit. So what we can do is to try and SSH in into ourselves. SSH, the IP address is 192. SSH 192. 192.168.200.1. So no user specified, no, not available for SSH. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so let's go to our PC and see again. Open 192.168.200.1. So you see now, it's asking for login. Asking, what is it? Admin and Cisco. Can you see? I'm inside my router now. Enable Cisco again. So you see, I'm inside the router from the... Do you understand what we've done here? So this PC is sitting on the LAN. But from that PC, I'm able to access that router. So if I do show users, let's see, we can see the user that is logging on this router. So this is how you are going to log in for a newly set up device. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? Our time is already up. I don't want us to spend more than 1 hour. Are we still here?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
So
sir.
Can I go ahead,
No
sir?
question
yes, you can ask your question, but it's,
from
time
my
is
part.
already. Yeah.
Yes, sir. No, I'm not asking a question. I want to
Okay.
talk about the EVNG installation.
Yes, we'll take that
Yes, sir.
on the platform. We discuss that on the platform. Okay. Just ask your question on the platform.
Okay, sir. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to class.
Thank you,
Do
sir.
have a wonderful night rest.
Okay, thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Good night, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Yes, sir.